Hello, Bookworms. Welcome to the Weekend Readers Book Club. Thank you for joining us. In this episode, we are discussing the 2012 released 400-page action book entitled Red Notice by Andy McNab, or it also may be known as SAS Red Notice by Andy McNab. This story revolves around our main character Tom, who is an elite SAS agent who is trying to track down and capture a terrorist named Laszlo. On the off chance, on a train going from England to France underneath the channel, Tom spots Laszlo on a train. What happens next is an all-out action read involving multiple terrorists, a train hostage, and Tom trying to get the bad guy, but also one of the passengers on the train is Tom's partner fiancée, Daphne. So not only does he have to try and get the bad guy and stop the potential terrorist threat, he needs to swoop in and also make sure that his partner is safe. Okay, so now that's the gist of the book. Here are my thoughts about the book after reading it. First off, this book has 114 chapters. It scared me, but when you look at the book being, say, 400 pages, you do the maths, you're like, okay, it's not too bad. And I got to admit, Andy McNab does the chapters really well, where each chapter is from, say, one person's perspective, and throughout this novel, you've got, quite a few perspectives. Tom's, Laszlo the terrorist, Daphne the hostage, the other hostages, Tom's workmates, his fellow SAS people. So the chapters are really well written and separated, so it's easy to follow the storyline and you're not getting confused on where you're up to or whom this chapter is about, as it is clearly marked in the chapter. What threw me off with this book was the way in which the terrorist Laszlo is introduced. I won't spoil it, but reading the book after, say, the first 30 pages, I sat back going, oh, okay, what I thought was right wasn't right, and it was a very, very intriguing way to set up some plot points that will come up along the way in the story. But yeah, originally when I started reading this book, I thought the main character was Laszlo. Now, he is one of the main characters, but I thought Laszlo was the good guy. But no, unfortunately, Laszlo, the bad guy. Reading this book, I said to one of my mates where I was a little bit worried and hesitant going into it because I had never read Andy McNab before. I knew he had wrote the story Bravo 20, which is the true life events of an SAS soldier, and the only, say, warfare soldier exposure I'd had previously was Tom Clancy. And while Tom Clancy's stories are great, he can go over the top in relation to describing things or just protocol and what, say, the armed forces have that go completely over my head. With Andy McNab, I didn't have that issue. The story was very well, told. There was a little bit of, say, government, army lingo in there, but he broke it down so you knew exactly what was going on with the story. So I felt very, very comfortable reading Andy McNab where I could actually get engrossed in the storyline and not having to, say, second guess or Google everything that came up that was, armed forces related or special forces related in this case to try and figure out what it is. So yeah, I really enjoyed that part of the writing that Andy McNab did in Red Notice. while I was reading this book, the thing that blew out to me was this book reads like an action movie. The more and more I got into it, the more and more I'm like, why has this not been an action movie? Because this story is awesome. It crescendoed very well. Slow to start off. I mean, you had the little twist with Leslie to start, get introduced to Tom. His story starts, it's very slow. Then you hit a point. Then once that point hits, hot damn, it's all go, 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 go to the very end. And exactly like an action movie, it didn't disappoint for me anyway. This book, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I couldn't put this down. It was, the more I read it, the more I'm like, action, action, action. The more I'm like, I gotta keep on going back to it. For me, this book, Andy McNab's Red Notice, was such an enjoyable and fun read. And it's right up the alley in relation to how I like my action movies. Now, after finishing the book, I did find out that Red Notice was turned into an actual movie. It's on Netflix. It's got a terrible rating. But hey, as is the case, the book is always better, people. The book is always better. And for me, I thoroughly enjoyed Andy McNab's Red Notice. Now, the thing to notice with Red Notice that I didn't realize getting into it, Red Notice is book 1 of 3 in the Tom Buckingham series that Andy McNab did. So there are 2 more books in this series for Tom's character, and I'm going to try and find those so I can continue and finish the series, because the book ended well. The book gave closure to this story with Laszlo, but there were little pieces dropped in throughout the story that didn't get closure, and you're like, huh. So I'm going to see if I can pick up the other 2 books in the Tom Buckingham series to give those a whirl as well. But the question is now, will Andy McNab's Red Notice be going onto my bookshelf? And I can confirm 100% hot damn yes it is. I thoroughly enjoyed this action book, and this book was awesome. So, as it customs here at the Weekend Readers Book Club, as one book closes, another book has to open. And it is now time to find out what the Weekend Readers the next read is. Bookworms, we can confirm that the next read for the Weekend Readers Book Club is The Man Who Fell to Earth by Walter Devas. To be honest, I don't know how this book came across my radar. However, I have it in a pile to read, so I am going to give it a whirl and see what it is about. The blurb of the book seemed interesting, and I think that's why I ended up picking it up. But yeah, The Man Who Fell to Earth by Walter Devas, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced that surname. You are the next read on the Weekend Readers Book Club. So Bookworms, that was our discussion today of Andy McNab's Red Notice, a book that I thoroughly enjoyed, a book that, when read in my head, translated to a big budget action movie, and boy oh boy was this action movie a hell of a lot of fun. As always, feel free to contact us if you would like or engage with us. We are available on Instagram, Weekend Readers Book Club, and also on YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes under The Weekend Readers. Until next time, thank you again for joining us, and Bookworms, happy reading.